Hi, and thanks for joining us for Rental Karma on Air. Rental Karma on Air is brought to you by Rental Karma, where good renters deserve good credit. Check it out at rentalkarma.com, and that's spelled KHARMA.
Hello, America. Welcome back again. Rental Karma on Air. Wendy Massengill. Hello. Friday the 21st, the longest day of the year for those that don't know what that is. Quiz, Wendy, what do they
The
call it?
summer solstice. I love it. I love it. I
That's
love it.
The longest day of the year. It's my favorite. Yeah, it's my favorite. If I was in Tennessee right now, I'd be heading up the Smoky Mountains, hiking up that trail to where those synchronous butterflies live. Not butterflies, synchronous fireflies. And watching the show tonight. That would be a pretty cool activity.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, have you seen that? Did you know that exists?
I was going to say, I've seen, I've been up. I don't know about the fireflies, but
no, your visuals looking to be like, what's that dude talking about? I lived here my whole life and I didn't know about this. There's like 7 places on planet Earth, folks, where fireflies live in colonies. And they rejuvenate every year because they lay their eggs and they stay there in that same place, right? They come out of the ground and hatch. They don't migrate, birds. But there's like 7 places on Earth. There's a subspecies of these things that actually, when they flicker, they do it in unison by the tens of thousands.
oh,
It's unbelievable. Normally you see them in the yard and it's just like one here, one here. There, it's like a symphony. And there's like a place in Thailand where it happens, and one of them is in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, not far from where you grew up. Boy, you did have a tough childhood if they didn't take you up there to see that.
yeah, we used to go hiking at the
golly.
chimneys and stuff like that, but I didn't. Oh, got something new for my bucket list.
It's incredible. It's one of those things in life you can't unsee it. It's awesome. It's pretty cool.
Thanks for sharing.
Well, yeah, and all those listeners out there, you do have to look in advance. Don't just show up because they sell tickets to get in because they only allow so many people in a day. So just prepare ahead, okay?
Will do.
Uncle Cullen just shared something with you, and go enjoy yourselves in a weekend coming at a national park near you.
Nice.
All right, folks. Today we are talking about what's this thing with 3. Okay, the power of 3. I don't know. We're going to talk about why is there 3 credit reports, or how does that affect you in your life in reality? Okay. When you go to the grocery store, do you buy 3 different gallons of milk, like a blue one and a red one, and no. Do you pick up 3 different brands of toilet paper?
No.
Do you get 3 different brands of bananas? I don't know. There's 3. I think there's only 2. And it's usually only 1 in the store. So there's not even you can't even compete with your Chiquita, or what's the other one?
Oh, Del Monte.
Yeah, they don't even they didn't put them side by side on the shelf. Do you ever think about that? No, they don't. But there are 3 kinds of ketchup. But you don't buy 3 kinds, do you?
Nope.
All right. Well, why do you have 3 credit scores of 3 different companies that you have to go around and kind of pull your hair out and wondering why your information isn't the same at all, why you got different scores, and why that even matters to the lenders, and the whole confusion of the process for all those of us that never had any class on this in school to simplify it. We don't need to learn the lingo of credit reports, what a trade line is. You don't need to know that. It's just you get your car loan, right? It's an account. And it just doesn't need to get overcomplicated. And if you get that understanding, you'll probably live a much easier life, okay? That's all I'm trying to get to here, is that it just is frustrating, right? There was a president not long ago that says, we're going to have 1 credit score. He actually ran on that. His name was Bernie. He stood in front of microphones and said this. And why? Not that we're mad at those companies, or, there's good people that work in them all. I know people in them all, and there's really nice people that work there. But at the same time, it would be nice to have one, and it would be simple and not confusing, and you wouldn't get all wound up with financial stress trying to understand why is one of my scores 100 points different than another one. And I had a gentleman last night, Wendy, doing reviews, pastor, and 61 years old, wonderful man. And we talked, and he was frustrated. And he had actually he'd turned into a credit guy, didn't have a score for a while. His TransUnion score had his rent added, and he showed up as 687. Okay. Yeah, 4 years of history. He had nothing else. He had one collection for $107 on his report, but because the collection was so old, it wouldn't actually generate a score. So he went from 0 to 687.
Oh, wow.
His Equifax was at 550 because that was that one old collection. And then there was one that was a little bit newer that was tied to the same thing, which was an insurance company that he paid a premium to. He canceled, and they wanted to say he still owed another month. So they sent that to a collection agency for another $150. But that generates a 544 score because his collection was recent. His rent at Equifax hadn't added yet for Rental Karma because it takes us a couple of days longer. So we're expecting him in a couple of days to jump right up there near the other one. But he's like, well, what about Experian, Cullen? I said, Mr. Williams, I said, let's just go through it, and we're gonna walk through this to we're gonna peel back the onions, and we're gonna make it easy to understand. Okay, no complicated words, just the simplicity of things. And at the end of the day, your credit score is nothing more than a number. Okay, and it's not a permanent number like when you get your driver's license. You have a permanent driver's license number, right? If you go to jail, you get an inmate number. If you go to where else do you become a number?
The bank.
When you have an account with a big phone company, the bank, you're just a number. The phone company, you're just a number, and things like that, right? But the reality is our score is a number that changes based off of our activities with our finances. And at the end of the day, what's the American dream?
I honestly kind of just have it better than your parents did. I mean, the actual definition of the American dream.
It's changing.
The current, well, actually, I read this whole thing about it, and like the current American dream is just because it used to be like to have a house and, you know, like 2.5 children. I don't know how you have the half, but and like a nice car in the driveway. And then nowadays, kids just want to have a better life than their parents had. So, yeah, because they really, I mean,
the half is when parents get a divorce and they split the time with the kids. That's your half. I was
going to say, just split the child. You take the first. Just kidding.
Yeah. I'll take the stinky and you take the noisy.
Yeah, the one with the brain that'll make me all the money. I'm just kidding.
So where focus is really are on goals, right? They used to say, the American dream is to buy a house. It is, but like when he says, just living better than your parents is not the worst thing either. But it's about attaining that goal. Buy a home, right? Buy a car. Buy whatever else it is in life.
Retire easily and
save
comfortably
money,
and
kids
happy.
In college. Yeah, those things. But when it comes to credit, if you go get a credit card, wherever you get it, they aren't going to pull all 3 credit reports from all 3 credit bureaus on you. Why is that?
Because they have to pay for every time they pull one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Money.
The credit card companies have to pay money to their provider of the credit reports every time they pull to check to see if they want to issue a credit card to you. So that would increase their cost by 3x. Okay. And that's a cost directly to the credit card company. You go get a mortgage, they pull all 3 reports. It's a requirement from the underwriter of the mortgages, which we're going to talk about here, and that is Fannie Mae. Okay? If you've ever heard of Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and you're getting a mortgage in America that's under $600,000, the chances that they are the ones that are the servicer and the underwriter and the funder of the loan are something north of like 90%, I think, maybe 80 or 90%. There's some exceptions in there, but when you call up Quicken Loans or you call up the friend of a friend that's a mortgage person now, and they work wherever they work, at a mortgage broker, or they work at a credit union or whatever, they are going through the exact same process. They have the exact same rules for approval. It's identical. And the mortgage persons, they try to not tell you this part of the equation because it really shows and sheds a light on the fact that it's kind of all the same. There's no real differentiation other than the quality of the person you're working with. Do you like them? Do you trust them? Are they efficient in getting back to you? Are they giving you good advice? I can't tell you how many times I've had folks come brought into us and they tell them to come to Roll Karma. Are they, and the advice they have been given by the mortgage person, I said to them, I said, how old is your mortgage person? I said, have they been doing this very long? Because they really didn't give you any direction and they ran into a brick wall and it was just sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. So this 3 bureau thing. So there's one instance and one instance only in my knowledge where you have all 3 credit reports pulled to get approval for one of your goals. And that is the mortgage. That's the only time all 3 are pulled. When you go to buy a car, they only pull one credit report from one bureau, and that dealer doesn't change bureau. So if that Honda dealer says TransUnion, that's all they're doing. And if you go across the street and Toyota says we use Experian, and if you go across the street to Kia and they go we use Equifax, guess what? That's what it is. So if you have an issue for getting a car, for example, and let's just say one of your reports is missing a positive piece of data that, let's just say rent, your rent's not on Experian. We don't report that to Experian because their process has still got too much friction in it for it to even be implemented. If we're going to go to a dealer and get a loan in that process, you would want to call the car dealer and say, hey, what bureau do you guys use, right? Pause the brakes there and go listen to the episode about how to buy a car with no down payment by going to the community credit union. Your car dealer is never your lender, okay? They're shopping you behind the scenes. Be careful. So don't even worry about what credit bureau they pull at a car place. You should never even deal with that, right? And if you call your credit union, you know what they'll tell you exactly which one they use. They'll tell you. I called Alliant Federal Credit Union out of Illinois. And guess what they use? TransUnion Vantage Score 4 for doing auto loans in all 50 states. What does that mean? It's the exact same score you see on your phone in your Credit Karma, except it's the newer version of Credit Karma. They use their 3.0. When they pulled by 4.0, my score was 40 points higher than my 3.0.
Heck yeah.
Not kidding. I got it on a piece of paper.
That's awesome.
They sent it to me. And I'm like, that's nice and transparent, right? So instead of struggling and looking at 3 reports with this data as confusing as can be and going, why is my score here, that, and can't figure it out. And you start Googling and you're looking for answers to it. And the frustration, the anxiety just keeps boiling, right? Peel it back and realize it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Further, when you're going through the mortgage process, Wendy, it's been a while since you went through that, Miss Homeowner.
Oh, yeah. 12 years.
Yeah. Wendy's more likely to have a car loan with all those, when I asked Wendy earlier before we went on air, what do you think? What things of 3 do you have in your house, Wendy? You have 3 kinds of toilet paper? No, she has 2, apparently, which was a surprise. I didn't know people have actually bought 2 different kinds. And I asked her about her car. Because Wendy does have a car. She's a car collector.
But in my defense, they're all from the 90s. So it's not like they're brand.
Like my son and his fashion that's from the 90s. It's pretty cool and hip. And, these things hold their value. They're Hondas,
Yeah.
right? You know, you can turn around and sell that thing 10 years later for probably more than you paid for it.
Yeah. No, if you look at my insurance bill, it's a
Which is
90,
pretty
a
cool.
92, a 93, a 95, and a
She's a
97.
collector, but but let me ask, do you have insurance on all those
Yes.
cars?
Would you like to see what
Do you choose 3 different?
I have one insurance for everything Bork and Bean.
Oh, you only use one insurance
For my
company?
house, my motorcycles, and my cars.
For all that?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. That sounds like the guy on TV was Flo, where they
And
say,
Flo's my girl, too.
bundle it all.
Yeah. And you want to know how much I pay?
Oh, you do use
You want to know how
Flo.
much I pay for all of the cars?
What?
All of them all together. $178 every 6 months.
Oh, dear God. I bet it's like less than $200.
$178 every 6 months. And that's for me, Ben, and the kid.
What? Shut the front door. $170 every 6 months?
Yeah. But I guess when like all your car's value added together is like a cumulative like $20,000 on paper. But yeah, no, it's $178 every 6 months. So
do you actually have collision, or you just have liability?
I've got state minimum. Yeah, so so just liability only. So because I've never had a ticket, never had an accident. So knock on wood. But no, but that's one of those things. Also, good credit score helped with that too, because a lot of people don't realize insurance quotes, credit score. That's important.
Yeah, it sure is. So going back to this thing of 3, thank you for sharing that. That's a heck of a savings, and it's a good tip there for the purchase of your insurance, for crying out loud. That's pretty wise. What if you only have data at 2 of the credit bureaus and you want to buy a home? Can you still go through the process?
Oh, heck yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you can.
Because the first thing that happens, and this is why this 3 bureau thing is to a degree a myth. When they take your scores, they look at all 3 scores. Okay. When I say the computer. And you have to have a middle score of a minimum of 620. And then if you do, they open the front door. Come on in and apply. You can get yourself a mortgage. Okay. Now, we never say try getting in at 620. 720 is where you want to be, because 720 is actually at the top part of the scale for the best interest rate, and 620 is the lowest interest rate. Even though it's 100 points right in there, change, right? 720 the best rate, 620 the other. Now, the door is open. Wendy says, come on in, apply for your mortgage. Guess what happens to my credit scores? Push them to the side, because they have zero to do with you getting approved for your mortgage. It's just like any other mortgage, or it's just like any other loan application then, in terms of what's your name, your address, how much do you want to borrow, what's their property, how much is the property valued at, let's see your income, let's see your debts, put it all together. Can you afford this, Cullen? Well, this fits into, you got a low debt to income ratio, and the house payment is going to be within the parameters of what your income is. And it's good that your income is easy to show on the pay stub each week. That's it. If you have your rent included on your credit report, when you make sure you do the overlay on this, go to the Fannie Mae website. It says right on there, for everyone who got declined for a mortgage, which, let's mean this, you don't get declined if you have a 619 credit score for your middle. That's not a decline. They didn't even open the door. Think about this, okay? There's 2 steps to this, right? You got a 610 in the middle. You didn't even come in and apply, so you're not even part of the statistic, okay? But for every 100 people that came in and applied and got in the door, showed them their income, the house, the whole bit, that for every 100 that got declined, they at least had their rent included on their report. in the automation, 17% more would have been approved.
Yeah.
So guess what? How many more are being approved because they have gone through? This is just talking about the ones that got kicked out, right? The number of people that have your rent, and it's a big factor. You've been showing for years how long you've been paying this bill, right? And it's on your credit report, has been validated. And they know this because they've been accepting it for years. Now, that makes a big impact just in that approval process. 720, it's a no-brainer to have your rent on there just because of the increased odds of getting approved. It's super simple, right? And if you only have data on 2, yeah, you can go through there. You can only have data on 1 report and still go through the process. And it's very common. Why? Because certain demographics in our society, millennials, looking at you, kid, grandma and grandpa didn't need it for a while. They didn't have much on their credit report. You're new to the country, many different reasons, right? But you have to have at least 2 accounts that are open for 1 year, and that's your other check mark. So if they open up the door, you walk in and you got a 690 score. When he opens the door, come on in. How many open accounts you got in that credit report there, Cullen, with that 690 score? I got 3 accounts. Well, are 2 of them at least a year old? Yep. My rent and my credit card, or my rent and my car loan. And I've had a credit card for 6 months. Come on in. Let's put you through the system. And from that point, Wendy is doing the exact same steps as every other mortgage person in this country. Okay? It is the exact same. So if you have yourself set for that, you're fine. Now, Wendy, a lot of people say, well, I have this negative on my credit report for a $400 medical bill from 3 years ago. Do I need to go pay that before I can get a mortgage?
Not if it's older than 2 years. Set it and forget it.
What if I have 3 of them?
I mean, as long as they're older than 2 years old, probably just want to wait for them to go away.
Yeah. Yeah, so if it's older than 2 years, it's not even affecting your score anymore. But the reality is a $200 collection account for a surprise medical bill or a cell phone bill is in no way going to stop the mortgage engine in our country from approving you for the mortgage when you have the other check marks checked. Why? Because the sleazy collection company that actually now owns this thing only spent $6 to obtain the debt to try and get you to pay them the $210 or whatever it is, right? But if you think about it, what's the worst case scenario to the mortgage transaction with this $200 collection hanging out there?
Honestly, probably just make you pay it. Just be like, just pay this bill.
No, but they, well, the more, but in the mortgage, but Fannie Mae doesn't do that. Okay. What I'm saying though is that the biggest fear and why it's not an issue is if this collection company manages to go to the court and get a judgment against you, and they're not going to try and go put a lien for $200 on your house. Okay. Because the lien it's just not going to happen. They would go down the road and they go to your employer and try and get, or your bank and try and get $200 out of it. That's the worst case scenario. And that is why it doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. And it's not a requirement in any way. They're more concerned about your debt to income ratio. Can you afford this house from the loan to value process, et cetera. And that's it. Now, one more layer of this thing that people are ultra confused about. And you want to get a little chart for this one, Wendy, as well, showing, and I have a great one. If you don't have it, I have a really good one that shows the difference in credit scores. To make this 3 bureau issue like a big old pot of soup with 50 ingredients that nobody knows what the heck's going in there, think of this as a little bit of the craziness of the thing, but I'm going to simplify it. Okay. What's my FICO? People are worried and they go walking around, what's my FICO? What's my FICO? And they look on their phone and we got these mortgage folks and a lot of others are going, well, that score on your phone, that Credit Karma, that's not a real score. I hear this. And I have to, every time I go into this, I go into the same bit and I educate people on this and understand. Okay. First off, for the better part of 50 years, FICO was a complete monopoly, an absolute monopoly with no competition.
Mhm.
Okay. And FICO, hello, is a math company.
Yeah.
They don't have your data on your on what your credit card balance is today. Okay. They are a math company that wrote a math formula and they license the math formula to anyone that will buy it.
That's all it is.
Primarily, it's to the credit bureaus, 1, 2, 3, and they would say, for every time you pull a credit report and you want to use a math formula to give it a score, we'll charge you $1. I'm not sure what the number is. It might be higher or lower. Okay. Well, when there's hundreds of millions of reports a year, FICO was making somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 billion a year in licensing fees for their math formula as a monopoly. Okay. And for years, nobody knew any different. You go and that's just what they used, and you didn't know anything about it. Well, one day, some people got a little upset of paying $1 billion a year in licensing fees. And they came up with this idea. I'm going to give you a clue. 3 companies joined forces to start a new credit score model called the
Vantage score.
Vantage score. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And the Vantage score was being used at the beginning by no one for writing loans because they were going up against
Fair Isaac Court.
monopoly. Right? They had every agreement and all the lenders and everybody was using them. And this is a crazy story, buddy. So the bureaus are like, well, $1 billion a year. Why don't we start our own company and create our own score?
Oh.
The 3 competing credit
They
bureaus
homied up for a
joined
second.
forces and funded. They homied up and they got together and said, let's create this thing called Vantage Score. So they funded it. They hired the staff. They said, write some math formulas and we'll license it from you, but we're not paying $1 per. We're going to pay 10 cents per, something like that. Right. Okay. That's the story. And that happened like over 10 years ago. All right. And now, as you can see, they're on version 4 of their software. And I don't know if people know this, FICO is on version 10. Okay. Well, what happened? Just think about your smartphone or Windows operating systems. Does anybody here still use Windows 98? Wendy, you probably do because you've got a lot of cars from the 90s. You probably got a computer from Windows 98.
I wish I did because I like that operating system. But
well, the credit score model that had been being used in the mortgage industry for the last 20 years was designed in what year do you think? I already gave you a clue.
I was going to say I cheated and I looked because I know FICO 9 came out in 2014. But I was going to say like 20 years or something like that. It was like something like obscene.
Yeah, it was around like 98.
Yeah.
Around 1998 was when this thing called FICO 4 came out, okay? That's what the mortgage industry's been using for 20, 25 years. They're now going through an upgrade to where they're going to use the latest version of FICO, which is FICO 10, okay? It's already approved. They're just going through now it's an implementation is where it's at. But guess what else is happening? They said, Mr. Monopoly, no more monopoly for you.
Fantastic.
Okay. Well, you are now going to be given the option, Mr. Mortgage Lender, of choosing FICO or Vantage. So all those mortgage lenders out there that have been saying that's a FICO score, educate yourself. Not the case. Never has been. It's actually the most modern credit score on the planet. You just use that as an excuse when people get upset walking in your office when they put the phone on the desk and the score on there is better than the one that you were pulling from 1998.
Mhm.
Now ask ourselves, why is the score different in 98 than it is today? Well, you ever seen a commercial for a thing called Experian Boost?
Mhm. Yep.
Do you know they allow you to import your Netflix account payments onto your credit report? Your utility bill, your cell phone bill, your rent.
Mhm.
Now, given they don't do in past rent, you can't go add 10 years over there like in Royal Karma, which is the big difference. But the reality is we live in a different
Yeah.
world. We live in a world that has surprise medical bills that didn't happen 30 years ago. Okay. So when the world changes, the way we score individuals in their situation changes as well. Thankfully, right? Because had they not gone and made those changes, we'd be living in this archaic world of being scored on something that was from a long time ago. Doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense that now we've got the upgrade, but the old process was just a bit confusing. So, one more part to, yeah, I will give you folks on the mortgage side of things. Okay. This is kind of where this really just falls into place is if you don't have the documentation, don't even have a credit score, but you got the job, you got the income and the other bits and pieces, they do have a thing called manual underwriting that they can put you through. And that's where the loan officer is having to go and get some additional documentation, but he's not submitting, or he or she's not submitting a credit report with your file. Inevitably, obviously, this sounds like a harder process, and it is, and that there's a bunch more boxes you have to check off to get that approval to happen. And the approval odds go down quite a bit for manual underwriting because they start the process and they just can't get every little bit and piece or whatever they need to get through that. I would say it's probably half. And if there's some mortgage folks out there that have the better statistics, I'd be happy to hear what that is. But it is definitely an option. But at the end of the day, if you can in any way, just simply having a clean, simple file is the easiest way to getting approved for a mortgage. Don't overcomplicate it for yourself because, if you're self-employed, we'll listen to one of our shows when we're talking about different businesses and stuff, but having a structure to your business, an LLC, a business banking account, and you getting a pay stub is way easier getting approved for a mortgage than you having to go and show taxes personally for the business and all these other things that really reduce your odds of getting approved because it's a little messy. Okay, that's kind of what you boil down to. So I hope that gives you all a better understanding of the three bureaus and then these two companies that sit outside of the bureaus that don't have your data. They're just licensing a math formula and do that. I want to give you one little insight on why this is a lot of people like to know the why. Why does that happen? Why did it happen? Well, the bureaus now over the years, can you imagine? They've been spending a lot less money on licensing fees to FICO. That's like walking down the sidewalk and finding millions of dollars, right? It's just money you don't have to spend. You don't have to do anything else for it. That's like just as smart, right? Nobody likes a monopoly. I don't know anybody likes that. But how it got popular is they partnered with these. If you remember 15 years ago, it was impossible to get your own credit report for free.
Yeah.
You
It
remember
was
that,
like
Wendy?
once a was this before the once a year you could get it and you could just have it one time a year once. Otherwise you had to pay for it.
I think free annual credit annualcreditreport.com I think came about because of the mortgage crisis in 2008, 9, and 10.
Mm.
I think that's when it came out. And it says Americans need to have better understanding of their finances, and gosh darn it, you can't charge them for getting their own information. Right? But before that, you would have to pay $10, $20, $30 to go view your credit report. I remember putting my card in and doing this.
Yeah.
Well, along came a spider, and this industry of credit monitoring services pops up. The number one, without question, Credit Karma. They came up with a business model that says you can have your credit score for free. And they used to give it to you with an update once a week. Now, every time you log in, you get a fresh copy of your credit report for free. How did that happen? Well, Vantage cut a deal with Credit Karma and says, we'll give you this thing for a very small licensing fee. That way you can give it away for free. And your business model of getting somebody connected to a credit card or a car loan or something where that's where they make their revenue, right? They got pretty successful. When Intuit bought them, do you know how much they paid for Credit Karma?
Ooh, does it start with a
Which
B?
gives away credit scores for
Does it
free.
start with a billion?
Oh yeah, there's a well, let's say you got this many fingers and then add this many. It was a little above 7 billion for giving away free credit reports. But the beauty of what they have done is they've given people access, like total access to their information for free. In real time. Yeah. And that is brilliant for educating the consumer on where they're at so they don't get taken advantage of.
Heck, yes.
Now, peel back the onion further, folks, and get away from the stick with the stuff we understand about, the score and the Y3 bureau and the whole bit. And you realize now you got millions of people. That's why the mortgage guys got irritable. You got all these people walking around with smartphones, 100 million people using it for their score. Oh, my score's 782, dang it. Well, mine says 682. No, they get upset and they get defensive and because they're stuck using this old thing. They were the same way the car dealer. The car dealers use mostly credit scores from the early 2000s. But we don't care because we're never going to get a car loan at the car dealer.
Nope, because we're going to go to a credit union.
That's it. That is it. So the simplicity there of that. So it took off, right? And then all these credit card companies said, golly, Credit Karma is like the number one place to get new customers for the card companies. Okay. That's why you go on there and you see all the big brands. I think darn near every big brand has their card offering on Credit Karma, right? And Credit Karma's job in the back end is to say, we're going to show your card based off of your with the lender, the card company says, this is for people with credit scores of 680 and above that want to earn travel rewards. Credit Karma looks over there and says, oh, Johnny goes out and they take 3 trips a year and he's got a 685 credit score. Let's match and show him that offer for that card, right? Then he signs up and gets it. Credit Karma gets paid by the card company. Johnny gets his card and everybody's happy because he didn't have to, go hunting. They did the matchmaking for him, which is a really brilliant business model. So when the card companies started coming in, they go, oh, they're using this Vantage score and we've been using this FICO for a long time. And some of our folks are getting declined, even though Credit Karma says they're a good match. Guess what they do? They switched and started using the Vantage score instead. Why? Because it allowed them to justify the approval of tens of millions of more accounts that the old model said they weren't worthy of. So that's how the traction happened. The cars, though, the car people in the dealer networks, they haven't upgraded. Okay? They're not using Vantage at all. The credit unions have been switching like crazy. And I'm going to tell you that story here in just a second. Okay, I want to end it on this because this will tell you what a really crazy business move FICO made. Fannie Mae underwriting pretty much every mortgage for all middle class America. They're finally hitting the upgrade button, and now Vantage is an option. So this thing went from 10 years ago. It's kind of a brilliant thing when you really stop and think about it. In 10 years, they're putting the hammer to the monopoly without government intervention to make it even happen. They did it straight up in the boxing ring. And so card companies, a lot of them have switched, so that's why it's okay. This is what they're using over there, folks. Fannie Mae, in the next, I think it's 6 months, it should be across the mortgage spectrum that it's implemented, that when you go in, they're going to be picking between the two. And obviously, this one might be looking good because it's not going to include surprise medical bills and all that other stuff, right? Includes things that your rent, which wasn't in the score formula from way back when. And now the car thing, like you said, we don't care when they upgrade because you're still never going to go get a loan at the car dealer. There's no sign out front that says Honda Bank.
They have one, but
there's
there.
nothing out there that says Ford Credit Union. Okay. And you're not going to get this. You have to be able to shop your lender. Would you ever? It just blows my mind. Go listen to that episode, folks. Okay. You never get a loan from a company you can't even go and read reviews about to see what kind of business people that is and how they're going to screw you over. Okay. So, Wendy, we're going to end on this because this is kind of the funny part about this. A lesson in business, folks. Okay. Why did the credit unions get motivated to quickly switch from FICO to Vantage? They still were using the same credit bureau. Like Credit Union of Colorado was using TransUnion FICO for 30 years. And Ascend Credit Union in Tennessee was using, say, Equifax and FICO for 30 years. What would cause them independently, these are separate companies, to all switch from FICO to Vantage in a very short window of time? I'm saying within 1 to 2 years. A huge majority of credit unions switched. Keeping in mind that these credit unions are kind of old institutions that don't change a whole lot over time.
So say probably the cost per run. I don't know. I'm one of those, like, money has to be the motivating factor behind every business decision.
Well,
but yeah,
it is. And here's one of the there's I want you to have the backstory because it's kind of funny. Okay. FICO stock. This happened 3-4 years ago. Okay. And you can go back and you look at FICO chart stock, and maybe put this on the screen so people can see it. There's a point where some news came out and their stock had been going up and up and up and up. And then there's this, it just dropped like a rock because of an earnings announcement that they were making less money. And it was like significant. And the management of the company, I believe, tended to freak out about this because of the stock price, right? And they said, well, how are we going to make that up? They sent renewal notices out to the credit bureau. So when you pay for a credit report, you pay the bureau a fee for the data, and then you turn around and you pay FICO or Vantage a licensing fee every time you pull a report. And those things are under like contracts, like terms, like, for the next 3 years, you can get your score for $1.10, whatever. They sent to these poor little credit unions their rate changes. This is what your rate's going to be next year for the next 5 years. In some credit unions, the bigger ones that had a lot of volume, saw 25 or 30% increases. That's kind of a lot
Yeah.
anyhow, right? You go into the mid-range, ones that maybe have, they work throughout a state and they're pretty decent
Mhm.
size. Your increase is only 150%.
Way to shoot yourself in the
I
foot with
saw
your
your
own
eyes.
gun.
It gets better. I talked to the president of one credit union, and he told me that the price increase that was sent to them was over 300% from their sales rep or whatever it was. And I was like, and it was the littler the company, the bigger the increases to the insanity. So what happens? The phone starts ringing off the hook of people going, hey, I think I want to go change and get the better score model. Alliant Federal Credit Union that serves all 50 states out of Illinois uses TransUnion Advantage 4. I called and I asked them, and they even sent me a piece of paper when I got a pre-approval for a car loan.
Mhm.
That's how it happened. Which, yeah, talk about shooting yourself in the foot,
Yeah.
right? So now all of a sudden, all these other customers are leaving you. It's like, it's like just, I don't even know what kind of example to say it. It's like, boy, let me slam the door and as you're walking
Like,
out.
that's just dumb. Like, for lack of a better, that's just stupid. Like, why would you I'm going to charge the guy that can't afford it so much more, 300% more, just to lose his business?
I mean, I would assume whoever made those decisions probably had to go find a new job because that's pretty dumb.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Rental Karma on Air. Be sure to leave us a voice note for any questions, comments, or stories about this or any other topic. Send them over to Cullen at rentalkarma.com. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe the Rental Karma channel here on YouTube. Just hit that button below, and we look forward to hearing from you next week.